Welcome to the Quill's journey. Settle in, let the story begin. If you're enjoying the atmosphere, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts below. I'd love to hear what stood out to you. You ever dream of falling? In the city known as the Crown, it wasn't the drop that killed, it was what you remembered on the way down. The Crown had no sky, just ceilings of smoke and steam, held aloft by spires of steel older than any living memory. Somewhere far below the clouds lay the remnants of Earth, though no citizen of the upper houses had touched ground in generations. Between the noble towers and the rotting underlayers existed a middle stratum of fog, grit, and forgotten people. That was where Kale had come from, and where he had chosen to remain. Kale was an investigator with the Ministry of Order, subsection Theta 7. It was a position of moderate authority but significant access. The kind of role that let you see the things most people preferred not to. For years, nothing had stirred. No scandals, no murders, almost as if human nature itself had been put on ice. Until today. The message arrived coded red. A nobleman found dead in a restricted section beneath Spire 9. No record of entry, no trace of an assailant, no functioning surveillance. The corpse had been discovered in a chamber that, according to all official records, didn't exist. Kale descended alone, through rusted access shafts, sweating steel tunnels and blinking yellow lights that flickered like dying stars. Each level seemed less inhabited than the one before. By the time he reached the site, there was no sound but the distant hiss of steam and his own breath. The chamber was circular and scorched black. In the center, the nobleman hung suspended, crucified by industrial cables. His feet were charred to bone. His eyes had been burned out. Ash coated the floor like soft snow. Across every wall, etched in blood and soot, were symbols, archaic and unreadable. They spiraled upward into the dark, coiling into a shape that made the stomach turn. Kale activated his voice recorder. Victim is male. Approximate age, late 40s. Confirmed identity, Lord Atron Tyrell, House Tyrell. Military-grade spinal modifications evident. No signs of defensive trauma. Death appears ritualistic, intentional. As he reached toward one of the symbols on the wall, his vision whited out. A piercing static flooded his thoughts. And then a voice. The heart remembers what the crown forgets. Kale staggered back, clutching his temple. Pain radiated through his skull. His neural implant had rejected the scan, too much interference, or perhaps something deeper. A voice crackled through his earpiece. Lysa. Kale, are you in the chamber? Yeah, he rasped, but something's wrong. I just got hit with a spike. System didn't like the glyphs. I'm checking the logs now, Kale, this chamber, it's not listed. Not in any registry. This isn't a blackout zone. It's off the books, like it was never there. Or someone erased it. No, worse, like it was never written in to begin with. Kale scanned the dead noble's expression, frozen in agony. His mouth hung open. Perhaps a scream had been caught in the audio sensors. You still good to trace the audio signature? Already sending a drone. I'll isolate the echo bleed. But Kale wasn't listening anymore. The phrase from the static looped in his head like a forgotten lullaby. The heart remembers what the crown forgets. He had heard it before. A memory not from the archives, not from his ministry training. A warm hand, a woman's voice. The heart remembers what the crown forgets, Kale, always. But Kale had no mother, at least none he remembered. He'd been raised in a ministry orphanage. Memory conditioning, clean records, no gaps, no anomalies. Except now. Later that night, Lysa met him near the old monorail terminal, her face pale beneath flickering fluorescence. She handed him a data chip. That phrase, she said, it wasn't just in the noble's last vocal spike. It's embedded in the static layers of the comms, hidden, subharmonic like a buried chant. She played it. A whispering voice repeated, "The heart remembers, crown forgets, awaken, awaken, awaken." The rhythm of it matched Kale's heartbeat. A cold chill spread beneath his skin. "This isn't random signal corruption," he said. Lisa didn't answer. "The system didn't glitch when we entered that room," she said finally. "It tried to erase it afterward." "You think it was sabotage?" "I think it was memory defense." Kale said nothing. In the Crown, memory was everything, and nothing could be trusted. He returned home to his flat in the middle levels. Above him, the noble towers blinked blue and gold. Below, the fog writhed over the slums. He poured a drink, stared into its spiral. "The heart remembers what the Crown forgets," he whispered to no one. Then his proximity alarm triggered. Someone was at the door. He drew his sidearm, a standard pulse-gaster. The door opened slowly, but there was no one there. Only a scrap of paper, lying on the threshold. Real paper. He picked it up. It was stained with blood. The scrap of paper lingered in Kale's hand longer than he realized. His fingers had gone pale around it, blood seeping into his skin like ink into old parchment. The message wasn't long, but its weight was undeniable. "Your memories are not your own." Kale ran the paper through a full-spectrum scan. No traceable DNA, no printing ink, no synthetic fiber. It was real, aged pulp paper, hand-scrawled in human blood, untraceable, impossible, and ancient, just like the chamber beneath Spire 9. Sleep did not come that night. By morning, the city had returned to its mechanical rhythm. Steam lines hissed above transit rails, mid-tier towers groaned with the weight of bureaucracy, and speakers on every platform hummed low mantras about obedience and order. Kale moved through it like a shadow, unnoticed, wearing the black uniform of the ministry. But his mind was fractured. Thoughts tangled like wires left too long in the dark. The autopsy report had arrived. Victim Lord Atron Tyrell. Cause of death, exsanguination due to ritual cable burnings. Time of death, indeterminate. What stood out was the note from the coroner. Subject's neural core exhibited decay consistent with memory ghosting. Unknown cause. Visual cortex completely overwritten. Memory ghosting. A phenomenon barely understood, anomalous echoes of thoughts or identity that lingered in a person's neurostructure, even after those thoughts had supposedly been purged or suppressed. But this wasn't common among nobles. If anything, it was a defect of the lower classes, another mystery to the growing pile. Kale called for an archive pool. He wanted records on House Tyrell, particularly any mention of dealings with infrastructure, city foundation design, or historical registry anomalies. The request was flagged. Access denied. High noble clearance required. Unusual. He tried another route, Lisa. She met him at a cafe built into the bones of an old transport bridge. Their table sat near the edge where the floor trembled with passing freight haulers. She looked tired, not just physically. Her eyes had changed. She was carrying something, Kale could feel it. "I went deeper into the audio layers," she said, voice low. "Not just the chamber footage. I traced that chant back further. It's embedded in the Crown's emergency broadcast network, hidden in the silences. Every citizen hears it. They just don't know it." Kale blinked. "You're saying we're all being whispered to?" She nodded. "Not just whispered to, programmed. The phrase, 'the heart remembers what the Crown forgets,' it's part of a recursive loop, a buried command. But only people with memory-scrubbing protocols would be able to even perceive it." "Like me," Kale said slowly. Lisa hesitated, then pushed a small projector across the table. A holoframe appeared. It showed a child, eyes wide, standing beside a woman with dark hair and a faint scar above her right brow. Kale's heart lurched. "I know this face," he said. "You should," Lisa replied. "It's you, and that's your mother." Kale recoiled. "I never knew her." "You did, once, before they took her, before they erased her from your record. Look closer." Kale stared. The woman in the image wore a ministry tag, not a criminal, not a rebel. She was one of them. She worked in ministry memory control, Lysa said. She filed a complaint, a whistleblower. Then she vanished. Weeks later, you were placed into State Orphanage Unit Theta. A silence fell between them. The sound of the city rumbled beneath their feet. "Why are you showing me this?" Cale asked. "Because I think she found something dangerous, and I think you were part of it, not willingly. You were used." Cale looked away. "I need to see what's beneath Spire 9, the actual schematics, not the official ones." Lysa exhaled. "You're going to get yourself flagged." Too late for that. By nightfall, Cale had entered one of the oldest ministry subnodes, off-grid, unlisted, and supposedly decommissioned. The door required an archaic keycard, not biometric, not neural-linked, manual. He descended through a rusted chute into a data vault older than any surface-level tower. Shelves of cryo-bound memory cores lined the walls, transparent capsules of glowing neural maps suspended in a mist of cold gas. Each labeled, each cataloged, and yet in the deepest aisle one was missing. A gap. Its label had been burned away, melted as if by plasma. In the space where the memory core should have rested, someone had left a crude marking, etched into the metal itself. The heart is not a machine. The heart is not asleep. Cale backed away slowly. Behind him something moved, a whisper, a hum soft and rhythmic like a heartbeat echoing through steel. He turned, no one there. But something had changed. The vault walls, once still, began to vibrate. Lights pulsed in steady rhythm, not mechanical, organic. Cale fled. As he emerged into the night air, gasping, the crown above him buzzed with the same rhythm. Tower lights flickered. Transit rails pulsed. The whole city throbbed like a nervous system awakening. And Cale, for the first time, felt the presence of something vast, not artificial, not man-made, but ancient. Alive. For 3 nights the city pulsed. It began with subtle shifts, lights flickering in rhythm, power surges timed like a heartbeat. No alarms were raised, no announcements made, but something beneath the crown had awakened and Cale could feel it in his bones. He had stopped sleeping. Dreams were no longer safe. Each time he closed his eyes, he saw the same thing, an immense chamber carved into the underside of the city, towering columns, walls covered in living glyphs, and at the center, a mass of radiant black shifting, pulsing, breathing. He was being summoned. Cale didn't tell Lysa. Not this time. Trust had begun to rot between them. Her silence had grown longer, her questions more pointed, and once he caught her running a trace on his comm implant when she thought he wasn't looking. Instead, he followed the rhythm. Every city district had nodes, sensory veins used for environmental monitoring. Cale had mapped the pulses and tracked their source to a forgotten sector, lower core B7**, deep beneath the surface platforms, officially condemned after a tunnel collapse 50 years ago. He bypassed the gates. The locks were rusted, the corridors slick with condensation and old blood, rats scattered at his steps. And then he found the door. It was carved stone, an impossibility in a city of alloy and concrete. Symbols were etched across its surface. They shifted when he looked away, as if rewriting themselves in response to his gaze. Cale pressed his palm to the center. The door opened. The chamber beyond was massive. A cathedral of bone-white pillars stretching into darkness. In the center, suspended by cables older than the crown itself, floated the heart **, a black sphere veined with faint light. It beat slowly, audibly, like it was dreaming. Cale approached, breath shallow. He felt his memories shift, memories of childhood, of the orphanage, of ministry indoctrination. They bent, twisted. New images surfaced. A mother's voice, a father's laugh, a home that had once been his. The heart was showing him the truth. The city's power didn't come from reactors or solar grids. It came from here, from a living intelligence embedded in the crown's very foundations. Not an AI, not a god. Something older asterisk. Something human asterisk that had been transformed, sacrificed, merged into the structure itself. The founders had built the crown atop it. The nobles had fed it. And the ministry had kept it asleep by feeding it asterisk memories asterisk. Forgotten citizens, erased rebellions, deleted bloodlines. Kale wasn't investigating a murder. He was following the trail of an asterisk soul-devouring machine made of memory and belief. A whisper echoed through the chamber. You were meant to forget. Kale spun, weapon drawn, but no one was there. The heart pulsed. A column of light expanded from its core and enveloped him. He was lifted into the air, weightless, suspended. Visions exploded behind his eyes. He saw noble children, injected with memory blockers. He saw citizens lined up for identity resets. He saw Lysa, young, afraid, standing before a tribunal. And then he saw himself, strapped to a table, screaming, begging for them not to take her. His mother fighting, restrained. He remembers too much, a voice had said. We'll have to bind him to the crown. The chamber dropped away. Kale landed hard on the stone floor, gasping. The heart's glow dimmed. A final pulse rippled out through the city. Kale rose to his feet. He knew now, he had been part of the system all along. Not just a pawn, not just a victim, he had been a key. His mind, his memories, his pain, used to feed the machine. And someone had made sure he'd never remember. He had one final stop to make. Lysa. Kale returned to the surface in silence. The city above felt wrong now, too symmetrical, too clean. The trains glided past like thoughts not his own, faces blurred by. Lights pulsed in rhythms he now understood. Every structure, every announcement, every moment of order, it all hummed with the residual beat of the heart. He walked to Lysa's apartment. The override code still worked. Inside it was dark, clean, cold. Lysa stood at the far end of the room, hands clasped behind her back, staring at the city through a translucent wall of glass. She didn't turn as he entered. I wondered when you'd come, she said softly. Kale's voice was low. How long have you known? She didn't answer right away. Then, since before we met, you were always part of the design, Kale, even when you didn't know it. He stepped forward slowly. You used me. Lysa turned, finally. Her face was not cruel, only tired. I saved you. You were being devoured, your memories, your identity. I delayed the process, kept you close, fed the system just enough to keep it dormant. He shook his head. You fed it asterisk me asterisk. I had no choice. Kale laughed bitterly. That's the thing about betrayal, Lysa. It always starts with good intentions. She stepped forward. You needed to find it on your own. If I told you outright, they would have purged you. You had to awaken naturally. Awaken to what? To your purpose. Kale drew his weapon. It trembled in his hand. I saw it in the heart, the table, the restraints, my mother. Lysa's eyes softened. She tried to stop them, but she failed, and they put a piece of her in the machine. What? She is asterisk in the heart, Kale, or what's left of her. That's why it called to you. That's why you're different. Kale staggered back. The floor beneath him felt unsteady. You knew all this time. I guided you toward it, and now that it's awake, we have to decide what comes next. What you decide, you mean. Lysa moved to a nearby console. I've built a channel, a failsafe. If we link your neural signature to the core, you can overwrite it, shut it down, but it'll take everything. You'll lose yourself in the process. Kale stared at her. That's convenient. You think I'm lying. I asterisk no asterisk you are. A silence passed. Kale lowered his weapon. I'm not giving the heart what it wants, not again. He turned and walked to the door. Lysa called after him. Then the city burns, Kale. It will unravel. Everyone will remember everything. The riots will start again. The nobility will collapse. The crown will fall. Kale paused in the doorway. Good, he said. Time passes. The chamber beneath Spire 9 glows brighter now. The heart pulses faster. Across the city, people wake from dreams they didn't know they were having. Forgotten crimes, stolen children, erased ancestors, all return at once. Sirens wail, towers dim, panic spreads. Kale walks the streets alone. Above him, the crown begins to crack.